Good morning. I know it's a very early morning. So we need to test your screen, probably if it's coming through, and then we launch, move forward.
Absolutely. Okay.
Perfect.
So let me try. Can you see my screen?
Perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah, we can see your presentation.
Okay.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to today's exclusive masterclass. We're here to demystify, understand the areas of generative AI in the scope of health sector across Uganda and also across probably the East African region. So with us, we've been joined by some guests. I believe was some of you will be mentioned here as time goes on. And then I'll also expound to you the quick action. What are we trying to achieve in this webinar or this masterclass? So my name is Daniel Nwondo. I'm a director, the co-founder of Vision Africa AI. We are situated in Uganda, and our vision is to make sure that we onboard at least 1 million people by the year 2031 who are digitally proficient in the areas of AI. It's an area which has come to, one, create employment opportunities for us in Africa and also at other continents. But for us, it's a low-hanging fruit. We just need to grab it with both hands and we utilize it to our benefits before we become slaves. So the technology is here, and Vision Africa is championing this initiative to make sure that we create use cases in different faculties, inclusive health. And today's topic, we're going to focus a lot on health. We know we have a lot of practitioners here from the Ministry of Health, clinical specialists, doctors, nurses, pharmacologists, educators, and so on and so forth, academicians. So all of you are welcome. It's an exclusive session where we're going to demystify a lot of things. But the quick take action that we want you to take on is to embrace the technology, take it as an agency to make sure that you benefit out of this concept, to make sure that also you benefit from the low-hanging fruit so that we can improve on the health industry in Africa, health industry in Uganda also. So that's what we're going to do. Currently, I'm in Dubai, and we've been able to benchmark on so many items here, how people, how government and also different stakeholders are embracing this kind of technology. So we believe that moving forward, all of us are going to benefit from the presentations that we are doing. So ours is structured. We'll have at 20-30 minutes from Ezinne, and then we'll create a live session whereby she answers all your questions. We're going to create a Q&A session in our next 30 minutes also, such that everyone gets back home when they're real well acquainted with what we are doing. Please feel free to ask any question about Vision Africa, about health, about which tools can be used in the health sector, and also where are the low-hanging fruits, what can be done to improve the health systems, what can be done to improve on our service delivery, and so on and so forth. Yeah, we have a special guest with us here who has joined us from Dubai. He's watching what is happening here. We believe all of you are going to benefit as we move forward. So this is what I don't know whether you can see my screen very well. If you can be able to see anything, please go in your chat section and then you type yes or you type 1. So we'll discuss about a healthier Uganda is very possible with the right technology. So we have already our theme today, which is gonna demystify before we go to the Q&A. But in just 1 or 2 minutes, I wanted to give you a general picture, which all of you know, and then we thrive with it. So how AI is unlocking the new ways to diagnose, treat, and reach every Ugandan everywhere. Ezinne, just to give you a preamble, Uganda is one of the countries in the world with the youngest population. So we are about 50 million people, Ugandans. So we are running to make sure that we compete with Nigeria. Nigeria is very big. So these are the key challenges that we have in the health sector, and it's a reality. All of you are here, you know it very well. One of them is the shortage of doctors. It's a very, very key area. For example, the ratio is 1 to 25,000. 1 doctor to 25,000. That's according to the World Health Organization ratio. I mean, World Health Organization recommends 1 to 1,000. But in Uganda, it's 1 to 25,000. I believe you can see the gap. So, and where the key thing is, about 75 to 80% of our population lives in rural areas. So there's a lot of, is far from specialist care centers. So for them to access the right medication, the right healthcare system, it's a challenge. So we also have some the killer diseases, all of us that we know. The number 1 in Africa, I mean in Uganda, is malaria. And we also have HIV. Both are highly detectable, of course, with AI. So we also have another challenge with the maternal deaths. It's also a very, very big challenge. So with those few areas, I believe out of your presentation, you're going to demystify how we can combat some of these things. And some of the practitioners who are here, they'll be challenged to go and before they go back to their special areas, they'll be intrigued, they'll be challenged to create solutions out of this, because our population is growing every single day, and we can turn these challenges into solutions. So thank you so much. With those few remarks, allow me to introduce to you our keynote speaker. And I may not say much about her. I'll just give you a small background of what she has done or who she is, so that she can take over the flow in the next segment. So, Ezinne Aso, I don't know whether I've pronounced it well.
Yes, you're doing a good job. Yes.
She's a professional bio, a healthcare strategist, a pharma futuristic, and also emerging thought leader, working with an intersection of pharmaceutical innovations, the global health system, and equitable access. She brings extensive experience designing and implementing high-impact programs across uh, underserved markets, with a focus on translating complex strategy into scalable, technology-driven solutions that improve health outcomes. So that's who she is. She holds an MBA from the Johns Hopkins Carey Business School, specializing in healthcare and technology. So with those few remarks, without wasting any more time, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to invite Miss Ezinne Aso to take us to her presentation. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Mulondo, right? Am I pronouncing
Yeah,
your name right? Okay.
call me
How do you
Daniel.
say Mulondo Daniel? Okay.
Yes.
How do I say good day in Uganda? How do I say it? Okay, it looks like your population is
Uh,
Ugandan. Oh, welcome
okay.
everybody. Oh, how is everybody doing? How do I say that?
Mwebale kuja.
Mwebali Koja. Did I get it?
Yes, exactly.
Mwebali Koja. All right. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me, Vision Africa AI. As an African woman, I'm very happy that, we have such an initiative that is pushing, you know, in helping Africans know how to use AI and emerging technologies. And I'm really, really happy to be able to contribute to what you guys are doing, obviously through the Global Skills Development Council, where I serve as an advisor. But I'm happy to be here. Uganda has been a country have I visited Uganda? I think I've been to East Africa. Yeah, I have been to Uganda. Yes, I've been to Uganda, but just for a very short stint for work. And I'm very happy to, be here to be able to share with my African brethren on, generative AI in healthcare. I think Mr. Malondo has already given you a bit background about myself. A pharmacist, obviously, I'm a pharmacist by profession, but I have worked in healthcare consulting all through my career. Never really practiced hands-on pharmacy, but I've worked with pharmaceutical consultants, and also as a pharmaceutical consultant supporting government in making sure that we have access to medicines. So yeah, I'm very excited to be here. I'm just going to quickly share my presentation. I don't know how you want this to go. Do you want us to just interact, or is it like, because I would like to know the population of people on the audience. Are they majorly healthcare people, or is it just a general audience, so that I can know how to begin my presentation?
Well, it's mixed. We have general population, but also even some uh, invites from healthcare.
Awesome.
So you
Okay.
can do the presentation. Maybe as time goes on, we can have a Q&A live session where we shall have an interaction. That's the format.
All right. So let me just share my screen. Give me a second. Okay. Yeah. So can you confirm you can see my screen, please?
Yeah, sure, we can see it.
Perfect. So I'm here as a Global Skills Development Council advisor for AI in healthcare. Obviously, for my background, I have experience working across healthcare technology products. I also have an MBA from Johns Hopkins University that's focused on health technology and innovation with a specialty in AI, and also have a program with Stanford on AI in healthcare. Constantly evolving, if obviously with the boom of AI, everybody really has to really restructure and reposition themselves in how to use AI, because it's definitely a necessary good, of let's say evil that has come. So today I'm going to be talking about generative AI in healthcare. That's why I was asking, because I really want to interact with the audience to just really know where they are in terms of like using AI and what tools they are currently using. But again, my background, I'm a pharmacist, MBA Johns Hopkins. I'm actually a market access person. That's my specialty. I've worked over the years as a market access professional, supporting in bringing healthcare products pharmaceuticals and innovation into the African market before I migrated to the US. So yeah, let's begin today and just asking, how have you used AI in general? I can't see the chat box, but I would love to get interaction because I'm sharing my screen. I would love to get interaction on, how have you thought about using AI in your day-to-day life, right? I really can't see the screen, but I'll just maybe just rush through my presentation. I can come back and see the comment section. But yeah, let's start. Every day as healthcare professionals, we get to serve patients, right? We get to, and I really love the fact that Mr. Daniel just presented the realities of healthcare in Uganda, right? Over 75 million population. The doctor to patient ratio is actually very high. We also have rather very low. Um, we also have a very fragmented healthcare system. We have very limited resources to care for the patients. We have high burden disease in Africa, like malaria and HIV, like he presented. And obviously, with the advent of technology, we have to really rethink. Really have to rethink the strategy on how we, adopt the use of technology and, some of these products to help healthcare. I know sometimes there is a myth around this technology as a good. Sometimes technology might not be the solution, particularly in the realities of Africa, but it's definitely aids and makes things easier if we have the infrastructure. I know Africa is still, I don't know about Uganda, but I can speak generally to Africa. Africa is still at a very nascent stage in terms of developing infrastructures that will support healthcare. Like we're still battling with enough beds, enough doctors, enough capacity, healthcare workers, all of these infrastructures that will support healthcare. And, adding a layer of technology, can actually be, how do I put it? Can actually be very, very, how is it kind of like very difficult to implement because we're still battling with some challenges in the continent. But what I really, really want us to prime our mind is you as a healthcare professional. And that's what I'm going to be speaking through this presentation. What are the things you need to know about your space, right? As a doctor, as a pharmacist, as a radiologist, as a chemical pathologist or whatever you are in healthcare. How do I begin to upskill myself and how can I use AI in my day-to-day activity? Now, under the hood, like literally patient present very, very severe conditions with headache, pain, or cough. And, sometimes they have to wait, in the hospital for months to be able to see a physician. So I'm going to use an example of someone very dear to me. Um, Actually went to the hospital for, okay, let's use a timeline of 12 months, right? Went to the hospital for care, right? Got a diagnosis, and diagnosis doctor had to tell the person in quote to go back to the hospital to go back to a diagnostic center to run a test, right? Person goes back to diagnostics, comes back to the hospital again after 2 months to meet the doctor to interpret the result that he had gotten about 3 months ago, right? Come back to the doctor, you have to wait again in the hospital, and then the doctor does not see you that day. You have to wait for the next appointment to see the specialist, right? And this is a real case scenario where it took about 5 months, right, for somebody to see a doctor and get a diagnosis of the condition before you can even actually begin to treat the symptoms you have. This is actually a scenario that we actually are facing every day in the continent of Africa. And I think this is something that we really need to rethink. How do I even use AI, right? How do I use technology to shorten this turnaround time, right? In my previous career, I've had to work on different technology products that helped in reducing turnaround time for treatment and care in Nigeria, specifically for HIV/AIDS. And I can tell you that just that innovation in itself actually helped to reduce, because we evaluated it and we realized that that intervention actually reduced the viral load burdens of a lot of patients, because we got their result early. We didn't have to wait to get the result from this lab Z in maybe 1,000 miles away to the hospital. So these are why we need AI today. So for example, this chart I have here, you have headache, you can just use AI. Oh, I have these symptoms. I have headache, I have pain, I have cough, right? And AI through trained models can be able to predict what you have, for your condition. And so we have to think and reframe our mind about the use of technology, right? Traditional predictive AI and generative AI, which is the subject of discourse in today's conversation, right? Generative AI in this sense is really, really helps to underscore and, detect patterns in data, right? And we could have different forms of data. I don't want to go really technical because I'm not sure about our, you know, I'm not really sure about our different level of exposure to AI, but there is something called structured and unstructured data, where structured data is like data that is well cleaned, and unstructured data is like data that you just pour into the LLM models and then it refines it and then it brings out an output, right? So in this case, sometimes a lot of data we get in healthcare, I can say that they are semi-structured because we already have given data parameters and points that we need to really evaluate for. But we have to move from just traditional use of technology to actually like using generative to be able to preempt, to predict conditions, drafts, summary reports of a particular patient result. So if I see, for example, in that patient, if the person had gone to the hospital and he had the test result and he says, oh, your blood sugar is XYZ, your bilirubin is XYZ, your creatinine level is this, your urea level is this. The person does not have to wait for extra 2 months to go to the doctor to be able to say, hey, doctor, this is my test result. How do I make sense of this data? What do I have based on this data? Just by including it into a generative AI model, the person can be able to preempt. Yesterday, I was checking through because I always keep myself updated about the new innovations in this space. And I saw that there is a new company here in the US that has just launched a AI software with Claude. And I was like, what? Literally, like right now, everybody now have at the beck and their call a a doctor in their hands, right? Because you can actually get diagnosis with just this well-trained model. And in Africa, specifically, we know that Gates Foundation just launched the program with open AI to, do something in healthcare in Rwanda. And we know that if that's successful, that could actually spread to different areas and different countries across the globe. So, but then we have to think about the strategic pilot and the clinical workflow. We all know that healthcare is very fragmented. Even I, as training as a pharmacist, I know that the doctor to pay pharmacies and nurses relationship is not well synced, right? And it's not just in Africa, I think it's globally, because even here in the US, it's not as seamless as that. But what AI can help us to do is to just, make sure that that clinical workflow that helps to meet patients patient care is actually well delivered, right? The deployment of AI, but it still takes a lot because it still takes a lot to really map out the system, and what works in the US or Europe might not work in Africa, might not work in Uganda. So we really need people who are very, very systemic in thinking, people who are very out of bound in really understanding local realities. And I'm really glad you're here because you know what's happening in Uganda. You know what the healthcare system looks like, and you need to begin to think about how do I really position myself, how do I really map out this system to really support in deploying AI system within my healthcare facility, within my store as a pharmacist, within my, basically understanding the workflow. And so first of all, we have to evaluate the unmet needs, right? Identify the current workflow. I actually was looking at a survey that I ran a couple of days ago, and I was asking people, what area of AI do you need? Do you actually need it? And before, it's surprising that a lot of people will say, yeah, I need AI. But sometimes you may not need AI in that organization because your workflow is seamless. But you can use AI to make it more efficient, not necessarily because you don't have a good workflow. So you need to actually see if there is an unmet need before you deploy AI. So for example, a cardiology body, right? Right now, we see AI systems that are being deployed here in the US where, you don't have a doctor. Most times when you're clicking a patient in the clinic and you begin to write notes, right? You focus on writing down what every word that the patient says. But right now, you don't have to because there are scribes, there are clinical scribes that do that for you just with your technology. And as the patient comes in, it just takes the notes of the patient patient, right? With your AMR or your EHR, right? It can actually take patient. And that's where you can focus more on your patients rather than focus on the administrative tasks. So yeah, you have to identify with an unmet need. Don't just deploy AI for just AI's sake, right? And then the deployment pipeline, right? You have to understand the pipeline, right? The algorithms, what platforms are you using? The demographics of the people, the operational needs, the internet, the obviously the data, the the GPUs and everything that you need to, deploy the solution. You need to really, really evaluate it carefully. And then operationalizing AI is another thing that we don't talk enough about. In this sense, what I mean in this sense is that how do you deploy it in your effectively and efficiently in the hospital system? In my previous career, I had the opportunity to support the redesign of the national AMR in Nigeria, and I can tell you that that project took us a lot of time. But what I really found interesting is because we're really excited about the redesign and just thinking about the human-centric approach of designing that solution, getting feedback from the hospital administrators and all of those stuff. But when it came to going to the field to actually deploy the systems and giving the hospitals the system and training their staff, we realized there was a different reality, right? A lot of people had the system, but they were not using it. A lot of people did not have the skill. They didn't know what to do. They don't know how to troubleshoot the system and all of those things. So it's a different thing. So operationalizing the system takes a lot of work and takes a lot of technical expertise to do this. So an AI solution can achieve 99% of diagnostic accuracy in the lab, but it will fail if it adds even 3 extra clicks for a nurse. And this is the reality, because a nurse might like, I'm tired, I don't want to do, I have a lot of work, I'll come back and be doing system after checking it on the paper, So you have to think, do I even need to have it? Because now people are like, for Africa, we might not be at the point where we can fully 100% say we're using technology. We can use the hybrid model, which is the paper-based, and the technology model. But still, the patient might be like, how am I doing extra clicks? Why do I, so you have to be very human-centric in how you design your AI solution in healthcare. So yeah, we're going to talk about the engines of healthcare in AI in healthcare. We have two. We have the large language models and then the generative adversary networks, right? I think a lot of us are familiar with ChatGPT. That's a large language model. It takes a lot of language, text, clinical notes, and does all of those stuff to summarize patient histories. A lot of EHRs right now in the countries are actually looking to actually redefine and how do I put it? Looking to upgrade their systems with those capabilities to be able to synthesize and get insights from what already exists. And this is an opportunity gap for you. Perhaps you're thinking about how do you position yourself. That's an opportunity gap that you could fill. And another thing is the generative adversary network, GAN. This really helps with medical imaging. So if you're a radiologist or you're a medical laboratory technician or whatever you are, that has to do with testing or visual sensing, right? GAN is really good with that. As you can see now, a lot of people now design flyers with AI, right? Because it's very good with generating images, right? So with a X-ray scan, right? I don't know if you've ever done an X-ray scan, you get a result and you're like, what's it? I can't even see anything in this. And that's why radiologists actually should begin to use this scan, because right now a lot of apps have been built that with AI now, you just scan your result, which is the film of the thin film you get when you do your scan to just check maybe your chest or whatever is broken, right? With that app, you can just scan it and tells you what you have, right? So you can see that AI has actually democratized health to a level where you no longer have to meet with a doctor to be able to understand what is wrong with you. So basically, I hope I'm making sense. I hope I'm not running too fast. I really can't see the chat, but I hope I'm not running too fast for you.
Hey, gentlemen, those who are following us, if you're following, please type 1, because we want everyone to be a beneficiary of this presentation.
Okay.
Okay, George, thank you. Moses, thank you. Please type 1. Samuel, if you're confused, type 10.
Yeah.
Okay, Stuart, thank you. Yeah, if you are left, please type 10. Not confused, but left. We want to make sure that everyone is is benefiting from this expert analysis, expert knowledge. Okay. Isaac, thank you. James, thank you. Moses, thank you. Yeah, averagely we are doing well. So if you get lost, please endeavor to type where you're lost, because we need to make sure that we are on the same page. It takes us a lot of time to prepare these things, and a lot of work is done behind the curtain to make sure that these things are properly arranged for each one of us here to benefit. Okay, let's carry on, please.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Really appreciate the support. I really can't see the chat, so that was kind of like, I hope I'm not going too
It's
fast.
one.
Okay.
It's
All
one.
right.
Everyone is at par.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. So yeah, I'm just going to continue with just talking about the clinical application of generative AI and AI in general in healthcare. I've already talked about, clocking a patient, where physicians no longer need, and even as you're clocking the patient, there are solutions that can actually even help you to get questions that you can ask the patient that would help to get to a medical diagnosis. For example, I'm speaking to a patient, the patient is saying AI can actually, on the speed of light, generate a question that I can ask the patient on possible, and just how do I call it possibly clean out some of the diagnoses that you might be thinking as a physician. So it just kind of amplifies your intelligence in a way, not necessarily doing your work, because at the end of the day, as a doctor, you're seeing the patient, you actually will be the one to make the decision. And we're going to get to that point where we have to talk about the carefulness, because there's a lot of there's a lot of medical malpractice, and there's a lot of medical liability that can happen from just using and depending solely on AI. But yeah, passive audio capturing as you're clicking a patient is with ambient voice technology, recording natural conversation between a clinician and its patient. Or even right now, we have models that can actually. I don't know how many languages you guys have in Uganda, but in Nigeria, we do have over I'm not mistaken, over 1,000 languages, right? And
We have
it's
about 50 something
okay, perfect. So
different languages. Yeah.
awesome. So if
Yeah.
I'm to go to a particular part of Uganda and I don't speak that language, right, with AI, I can be able to use with a trained model, right? I can be able to develop a solution that will be able to speak to patients in those regions, right? And even as the patient are speaking to me and they're trying to communicate to me their healthcare challenges, right? With these models, I can be able to know what they're saying, right? For example, somebody I go to a place and somebody trying to tell me, oh, I hurt my leg and I'm having diabetic foot ulcer, right? I might not be able to hear what you're saying, but it's so powerful. This technology is so powerful because right now I can listen to you even if I don't know where you're from, even if I don't know your language, even if I've never lived with you, just with the power of AI. So this is very, very important that we bear in mind. Also, transcription and diarization, obviously converting the speech to text, and also making sure that I know who's talking, when to talk, and basically, and it summarizes, it synthesizes all of these things with funnel, a lot of data. So maybe the patient has spoken for 1 hour, right? Just like this webinar we're recording, you can give a summary of these are the highlights, these are the points, these are the things, and this is the action point we should do. This is the next step. This is what you should do to this patient. And even agents right now, which we're going to get to later, can actually like schedule the patient for a follow-up, or even schedule the patient for another experience, right, to be able to get their care. So yeah, definitely we have to see the power of AI in reducing administrative burden in healthcare, allowing clinicians to maintain their eye contact and focus on care, not keyboards. So another thing, I think one of the things that I personally have been doing with my team in my organization is really thinking about, the data bias we have, because actually AI in healthcare cannot happen if we don't have data, right? Quality data that we can clean. And right now we have decades of data sitting down in healthcare facilities in Africa that nobody has really, really thought about the initiative. And this could be an opportunity gap. Even right now, as I'm thinking about it, could be an opportunity gap with partnership with government to say, well, we're going to digitize your past records, right? Because we want to understand what are population history is in this condition or in this stuff, to be able to make sure that as a national body or as a national healthcare system, we are able to understand what is the recurring patterns in this regards, malaria, HIV, what are the things that we have seen from previous data that can help us to, better refine our strategies and things that we're doing for healthcare for our population. A lot of the models we are deploying right now are data that have been trained on American, Europe, Australia, or whatever data. And definitely, if we want to be able to, eliminate those liabilities that comes from, data bias, we must be able to have our own local data. So let's talk about this, the hallucination trap, right? So we have an input of a data S3, like I said, or maybe a scan, maybe a mom who's about to give birth, get a scan of her baby. AI can do this analysis perfectly, right? And then you input your text constant and say, hey, attempt to accompany a narrative. And the large model with a lot of data that we have from previous years can look at that data point and analyze it against other already existing trained data sets to come up with an accurate diagnosis, right? And currently I'm working with my team on an AI model. We built a model for cardiovascular. And funny enough, it's Uganda. Actually, I didn't even realize it's Uganda. We're working on a model for cardiovascular risk prediction in Uganda. I think the data set we got was no, the founders are from Uganda, but the data set we got is not from Uganda. I think it's from Ghana. And you obviously, to some extent, because of the genetic similarities, right? We can say, oh, we can leverage it, but truth is, can we really leverage data from Nigeria or Uganda to be able to speak to populations in Uganda? Truth is, maybe the answer will be 70% yes, right? So to be able to have this effectiveness, we really need to really go back to the drawing board and really see and think, how do we make sure that we actually are positioning our healthcare system to be able to do this and making sure that they're not entirely forcible or patient records history are actually, well done, right? So because output sounds like authoritative and visually aligns with factual inputs, step-by-step evaluation and mental prompting are required to force the AI to cite its reasoning and prevent fabricated data leakages. So yes, this can only happen with the right data. So yeah, I'm going to talk about, I already talked about medical liabilities, and this is in the US and developed world, is a very big issue, right? Because obviously every AI model has to go through FDA approval, right? It's very regulated here as compared to Africa. We are still getting it because my team and I, we did a study, right, to just map out the entire continent of Africa to see the AI policies and how many countries have policies. Currently, about 39 countries in Africa out of the 52 have an AI policy for healthcare. And that is progress, but the truth is we actually really need to think about it in a different light in terms of like how we think about the medical liability. And this is what we're talking about today, the risk factor. So we could have AI as an assistant, right? To brainstorm scenarios, generate education rubrics, summarize personal clinical notes, all of the stuff. That's very low risk. So as a doctor, you're thinking about how as a pharmacist or as a physician or as a radiologist, thinking, how can I use, maybe can I have an agent that I've built for my can I have an agent that I built for my clinic that just really helps summarize? Can I have an agent that schedules my patients? Can I have an agent that summarizes my financial statement? Can I have an agent that, helps me to predict, the number of clients I should be expecting today based on my past history, right? So yes, that's low risk. The yellow medium risk needs a human eye, right? And that's something I've been pushing lately, the human AI collaboration, because AI can be autonomous in different industries, but in healthcare, you have to be very careful because you have a human life at stake, right? And God forbid that AI does a surgery and something happens. Who do you blame? Do you blame the model? Do you blame the human? Do you blame the doctor? Who do you actually blame, right? And my MBA class at Hopkins, this is one question that we asked. We had to do a case study about deploying AI models in healthcare facilities in a hospital. There was so this patient had used a software, right, to make a diagnosis for themselves, and the software told them to take this drug, right? And the person took the drug and the person had a medical liability. Medical liability is like maybe having an issue from the diagnosis. And the person sued the app, sued the owner of the app. And the owner of the app was like, but I just built the app based on data from my population, and I didn't extend, and the app was working, it was FDA approved. So the question is, who do you actually blame in that instance? You blame the doctor who gave the patient the app, you blame the person who used the app, or do you blame the company who developed the software? This is still a very, very nascent area in terms globally, not just Africa. Globally, everybody's still scrambling for answers about how do we regulate, and govern the use of AI, particularly when a human life is at risk. So yeah, the red high risks, you need a human leadership there. Generating clinical diagnosis, even after AI has given you an output, you have to give a second lens to it, right? To see that actually this makes sense. Evaluating healthcare policies, AI can give you a reel of different policies that you can implement, but you know the local realities, you know the local context. That's why we need a human there. So, for example, our cardiology scribe that we talked about earlier, generating the draft consultation notes, it's a yellow tax because it's collaborating. The doctor is collaborating with the AI to take notes as patient is there and also reviewing the notes. So, yeah, we need to be very careful on how we use it. So yeah, I think I'm going to run quickly. I'll wrap up very soon. We have AI as a role player. Um, Even in your education, nursing education, for example, you want to understand how to use AI while you're studying for your medical degree or your healthcare degree. AI can actually make study easier. I actually find it very, very exciting that we live in a time like this where we don't have to retain knowledge. And this is a good and it's a bad because it has pros and cons rather. Because it making people mentally lazy, but at the same time, it makes things easier and faster for you. I remember many years ago when I was still in school, I had to cram a lot of medical terms, names of drugs, names of biochemicals, even structures, right, of these things. It's not necessary anymore because my back in less than 5 seconds, I get the results and the answer to be able to give to a patient or something like that. So we have to be really, really mindful of how we leverage, these tools, in for our own good. I think it makes sense to, not totally depend on them, but to use them as an aid to make things simpler to understand for you as you study. So you have to be very, very mindful in terms of how you use this solution. So I've talked about medical imaging. I'm not going to flog it a lot. So example, we have clinical data already existing. These data have already been validated by HIPAA and GDPR standard, global data protection, right? And all of those regulatory agencies that we have um, globally, right? So we have the data that's why I said, for example, this is a retinal company, right? It's a retina scan, right, of a patient eyeball, maybe for different glaucoma or whatever the patient has, right? With AI now, I know a company here in Johns Hopkins that built this found a physician that built this model, right, where he was able to get a lot of data set from previous scans of patient retina, right? Retina rather. And by just getting a scan, he can get predictions of the patient's progression and what they can do. I think that's the power of this tool. Honestly, like I think it's really revolutionary if we know how to use them, right? Even in drug development right now, I remember one of the reasons why I chose to study pharmacy was because I wanted to find a cure to HIV/AIDS. Because I was like, why are my people dying? Why is Africans? Why are we dying from HIV/AIDS? And I was very passionate about it then. But when I realized it takes 20 years to find a cure to a drug, I was like, ah, no, this is not for me. you know. But now we have companies who are, in the US who are actually like develop models to really, really streamline that process by eliminating all the different and even synthesizing some of the possible, molecular structures for drugs that will have effect on a particular disease. So it's very, very powerful, and definitely you can think about it in that light. So before we wrap up, prompt engineering is one thing you need to know how to do when using Gen AI. You need to be able to know how to prompt, right? And the key principles are explicitness. You have to give the context. You have to give evidence based on guardrails, right? And guardrails are like guidelines, right? Making sure that they stick to, specific guidelines. So, for example, look at the vague clinical output. What are treatment options for diabetics? That's very generic, not specific. So if I come down and say, according to 2023 or according to 2026 ADA guidelines, what are the recommended pharmacologic treatment for a 65-year-old patient who has type 2? You see how specific it is, right? So you need to learn as a healthcare professional how to prompt rightly. I think this is something that even at its basics, you need to learn, right? I know a lot of us use ChatGPT and stuff, but people don't even maximize the power of those tools because they don't know how to prompt. So I recommend that if you can, just upskill yourself in that regard. So it's another example of a good prompt, right? Act as a cardiologist, right? Act as a radiologist, act as a pharmacist, identify cost-effective guideline recommended alternative medications. My patient has, maybe the guideline has said your patients should, if your patient has 65% bilirubin and 7% urea, you should give this drug. But your patient comes up with a very odd medical chemical composition. Using AI, you can actually say, act as a cardiologist based on this, based on, this is what my patient has, right? What can I do, right? And it gives you the recommendation. Then you review it, which based on your experience as a doctor or as a clinician, and also the guidelines, and make a judgment, because obviously you have to make the final judgment. So obviously we have to identify. Most times if you use AI, you realize that it's always say Gen AI is supposed to risk, might not be correct, makes mistakes sometimes. So we have to be very careful how we use this, right? I've talked about hallucinations already, but also bias, right? So for example, the data was trained with data from patients in Europe, right? And it's going to be biased. It's not going to be the same as patients in Uganda and Africa, right? So we have to make room for that data bias and brittleness of the data. So this is very important to bear in mind. I love the concept of the human AI collaboration. This is something I'm really, really passionate about preaching for Africans, because obviously with the hype right now, some of us might just make decisions with AI that we cost the patient life, right? So we have to understand that AI is just an engine. We have to keep human in the loop. Everything comes down. You need to verify for clinical action. So make sure that your judgment as a healthcare professional is in the loop and acts as a final filter for your patients. I'm not going to go into this because I already talked about this market validation. I was going to talk about the market access aspect, because I'm a market access professional, and we talk about market validation and real world evidence, but we really need to be very, very mindful about how we monitor the shift and how we bring in these products into the market from, well-developed clients and all. So operating principles for clinicians, I think I've talked about this already. Understand your engine, leverage the tools. There are a lot of tools, there's Claude, the Gemini, that you can even build your own agent, right, to help you with, different things in healthcare. And then maintain the guardrails, right, the human in the loop, right? That principle is very, very important to bear in mind. Okay, so I think I'm going to rush through these, right? The paradigm shift of chatbots or agents. Right now we're seeing that a lot of people are saying you want an agent, you want us to build an agent to schedule your appointment in your clinics. You don't need to go to those websites, start queuing, right? You can schedule your session and AI send you a reminder. Even after you've seen your patient, you can send a reminder, you should take a drug by this time. It helps you to, improve the experience of your patient and makes things easier for both you as a healthcare professional and also your patient. So agents are very, very powerful. The workflow and the standard operating system, we need to really think about them, agents are, like as you can see here on the screen, agents powers the entire healthcare system, working in hand with already existing EHR systems. So a lot of companies now are building agent that can plug into system. For example, here in the US, one of the biggest EHR that almost all hospitals use is called Epic, right? Epic is like the standard EHR that almost all healthcare facilities use. And so what's the current EHR that you guys use in Uganda? How can you build an agent to support healthcare facilities to be able to do all of these things, observe medication requests, patient care, and all this without even doing extra work? The agent is doing this work with existing data. So I have talked about, I'm going to wrap up with the framework of validating an agent. You have to define your KPIs. What do you want to get out of this AI? I've said it before that not everybody needs an AI system. You know, you really need to be very mindful, because I feel like with this gold rush, a lot of people might just include a layer that they don't need, right? So you have to be very careful and define your KPIs from the onset, right? Build comprehensive data sets, multi-level tracing. You have to trace human in the loop also. You have to diverse your evaluators, have a human or an AI expert come time to time to just really evaluate what you guys are doing. High volume simulations, simulate, because sometimes the fitting of the model, you have to adjust them. They might be underfitted or overfitting, and just enough fitting. But just the fact that you have a model doesn't mean that you don't need to revamp the model as time goes on. So these are things you need to bear in mind. You also have to talk about the operational monitoring, the costs. Also, do you have the money to implement it in your company? What's the trade-off, right? A lot of people are talking about, I was reading an article on Forbes, and the person was saying about they've not seen the output from using AI in their organization. And I'm like, are you actually evaluating right? Or what are you actually evaluating? Are you evaluating productivity? Are you evaluating, your revenue? Basically, so you have to get those metrics really right and really understand the trade-offs. So strict version control for the prompt, who has access to the data, because I feel like this is something that we need to be very careful. I think one other industry that's going to be booming right now is cybersecurity, because we have a lot of data moving, right? A lot of people's sensitive information, and healthcare is one very, I remember there was a time where there was a data breach in almost all, it happened for a consecutive like weeks in the US. Different hospitals were being attacked, their data were being leaked online, and a company's liabilities is a liability, because if you don't have the right team on ground and expert to be able to provide you that technical expertise in cybersecurity, and making sure that data is well protected, you might be fine. You might be finding yourself in the courts, so you have to be very mindful about that. And then systemize your feedback loop, right? How do you get the feedback from your system? How do you make decisions? It takes a lot. It's not just about deploying the models. It's also about thinking the end-to-end system to make it happen. So I've talked about this. Yeah, I'm going to just keep these. Yeah, I think I've talked about predictive models and contextual and the bias, so I'm going to skip this too. So yeah, I'm going to talk about the AI literacy in Africa. Specifically, I put this slide because of the context, the audience context, right? We have to think about the literacy skill, collaborate responsibly. You have to think about how your current staff, what's their workload, what's their burden, right? How do they collaborate with AI? You have to start from that level, and then you explain the AI outputs, and then critically evaluate, the output that you have been seeing over the couple of years before you fully deploy. It takes a lot. We're already talking about we don't have enough healthcare workers in the continent. You don't want to overburden your staff with just doing a lot. So you have to be very, very mindful of how you deploy this stuff. Again, I'm going to wrap up with this model for your prompt. Ask your AI what you want it to act as, the input, what are you prompting, the steps, how do you want it to bring out the output, what's the expectation, and how do you narrow the findings that AI provides you. So yeah, so this is it. I think wrapping up, AI transparency, internet of medicine technology is also very important, and also making sure that you have your assistants, right? I think I love the fact that we can start from that level of having AI as assistants, before we progress to the point where we actually like loop to loop, right? We need to really, really think about how do I use it today in my work. So yeah, so I've run through my presentation very quickly because I would love for time for
Okay.
questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Carry
I
on.
hope it wasn't too fast. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ezinne, for this kind of a presentation. I believe it was a crash course for someone, maybe 3 years in one day, in 20 minutes. So I believe one of us or one or two people have they're taking notes. So we're going to have a small Q&A, 5 questions, and then we will also open um, the audience to ask their questions. Already there's some in the chat section. Maybe in the meantime, I'm going to be asking you one at a time, and then you answer probably also from the chat section. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah, we'll
Perfect.
do.
Okay, let's start from the first question right now. As you, Miss Ezinne, I want to ask you a question to do with please educate me as let's say, imagine a nurse in a rural area of Uganda. There are many areas in Uganda, but let me pick one area called Karamoja. It's one of the, yeah, you can Karamoja. It's one of the remote areas in Uganda. So there's a nurse there who has never used AI in her life, but she's watching us right now. So in a plain language, what is the very first thing that she should do tomorrow? Integrating AI into her work. She has never used a computer. I mean, she has never used AI in her life. She's watching us, very nice lady, and she wants to get started tomorrow. What is her very first thing to do?
I'm gonna put myself in the scenario of the nurse and just answer that question. So I'm gonna put myself in the scenario. So I'm the nurse. I've been hearing a lot of buzzword about AI, and considering the local context of Morangi, you say Morangi, right? Or Africa,
Karamoja.
Karamuji rather. Yes, considering the local
Okay,
context of
Kano State.
Kano State. Okay, I can Karamuji is not bad. I can speak it. So
Okay.
um yeah, I would say that first of all, I would advise her to just find a way to educate herself, first of all, on what AI means, right? Um, she should think about what AI means to her, right? And just get to know what AI means in general. That's the first step, because if she doesn't know what AI means, there's no way she's going to use it. I know. And then after that, she's going to think about her current work, what she's currently doing as a nurse, right? The way, I know nurse has different specialty. We have bedside nurse, we have, all of those stuff. So the way a bed nurse may be approaching AI may be different from a administrative nurse, right? So she also has to understand what kind of part of nursing is she really specialized in, right? The way a travel nurse or my approach AI is going to be different. So first of all, understanding AI, what AI means, understanding what her own role in nursing means. And that way she can sit down and marry the two together and say, okay, I am maybe a nurse, I'm going to have to take care of my patients. And every time I go into the ward, I have to, identify patients. I have to know when to give them their drugs, if I'm a bedside nurse, and what time to give them their nurse, all of this stuff. And I keep those things in my brain, or I write them in a paper, right? Can I have an AI model that, does the scheduling for me and, notifies me at the time each patient is supposed to take a drug, or help me to go and give the injection, or help me to, do all of these things. Sometimes some of these nurses may not need it because they're already used to this, and maybe the population size is not very large, right? Sometimes because of the large volume of patient they have to deal with, and those reminders, having to keep them in their mind might be very difficult. They might have to deploy the use of an AI, simple AI model, as simple as even maybe having a scheduling model or an assistant that takes notes and, just really reminds them about the different patients, when to give them their tests, when to change their dialysis or whatever, So yeah, that would be my take to that nurse. Don't feel pressured by the buzzword. Really identify the unmet need and, your current clinical workflow, and see if there's a gap and if there's a need for deploying AI.
You've really answered it well. And it takes us to another second question. For example, the years you've been around, the kind of exposure you have, and the level of advisory work you have attained with GSDC Council. What is that one AI health application that has genuinely shocked you with its real world results in Africa? So that nurse of ours can start with. For example, she has a phone, she has probably a small computer. She's deployed in one of the health center 3 there. Yeah.
Wow, that's a very reflective question. There are currently tons of AI solutions. Even before it became a buzz, there are really tons of AI solutions that already exist for healthcare in the continent. I'm not very privy to what currently exists, but I keep my eye on the continent from time to time. And there are lots. There are lots. There's an AI solution called Ubenwa. I was just talking to my team about it. That
Can,
Ubenwa or something like that. Yes, and
can
it's
you type
just
it in this chat section?
okay. So it's
Probably
Ubenwa.
that nurse is here.
So it's a model that's, for a woman who has just given birth to a child, right? It's an AI solution that a baby is crying, sometimes due to a asphyxias or something from a blocked nose or something. The baby keeps crying, and you think that it's just a cry, and you don't know that the baby is actually crying for a medical condition. So with this AI solution, I think the founders are from Nigeria, I guess, or something like that. They actually, you use the app and you put it on their stuff and you listen to the baby's cry, and you can tell just by owning the audio to record the baby's cry what's wrong with that baby. If the baby needs medical, I think that's phenomenal, and it's actually
Okay.
existed before time. There is also another AI model that does ultra scan, right? So, for example, a rural nurse, you're in the rural part of Uganda, and you don't have a patient don't have
Please,
the.
let us know how much is an ultra scan in Uganda in terms of dollars.
Okay, I don't know that. I don't know that, but maybe one of
Rates, please.
yeah. So it's pretty expensive. So sometimes it
How
might not
much
be
is it?
very.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know what it costs in Uganda, but I know that there's a company that built a hardware powered AI model that, does the ultra scan with a power handheld device, right? You just scan the mother's tummy, right, and know what is happening. That is life changing. Like literally, that's phenomenal. So there are a lot, there are lots, there are a lot. You just have to do your research and find the ones that exist. And like I said, the one we are building in Uganda is like an AI model for cardiovascular risk prediction. And, we are trying to see how we can, infuse that model into already existing diagnostics to predict a patient exposure to, maybe a cardiovascular event or heart attack. So there are actually a lot of AI solutions that have been deployed in the continent. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Probably you're answering someone's question. So the third one, because we need to be very fast, time is against us. There's a fear uh, in consultancy that AI will replace doctors and health workers in a country like Uganda, where unemployment is already high. So, because that's not a small concern, how would you respond to that fear?
Mm, mm.
How would you
Yeah.
respond to that fear?
Yeah. I want to think deeply about my response because
Because there's already a
honestly,
fear in the
mhm,
market. Mm.
yeah, the truth is, it's not just in the Uganda, it's not just in the African market, it's globally, right? It's like a reality we'll have to deal with, just like when there was an internet bubble and everybody was scared about, the power of the internet, taking trade, remove from the traditional traditional model, industrialist model, to actually like really think about, moving to the use of internet to make commerce faster, right? I think this is a very deep question that everybody has to sit, and I'm glad everybody on this webinar is here. You have to think about it in your own regards. My current workflow, what what would AI mean in the next 10 years? How would AI, literally um change the work I'm doing today, right? I think healthcare may be a little bit, there was, I think, if you've not read the AI report by Anthropic, right? They released a report that shows high risk industry. And from that report, by all indication, healthcare is healthcare is high risk, actually. Like literally, if you look at the heat map, it was like healthcare was like towards the end. And you're like, as a healthcare professional, you're like, what's happening? Obviously, the truth is that there's going to be a lot of change in the way the world is going to be by 2030. It's been said, and we don't have to overflog it. By 2030, things are going to change. So unemployment is a reality that we all have to, think about. Even me as a young person in Africa, I'm thinking about not just my stay here, I'm thinking about my continent and how to help people back home because I've always been passionate about that problem of
Elon Musk has
unemployment.
already suggested that we should have a universal payment whereby people go home and then they are paid something because robotics
Mhm,
and AI
mhm,
is phenomenal and a lot of things are changing. For example, you're aware that there's a company, Anthropic.
mhm,
They're even scared to launch a newer AI model called
mhm,
Mythos
mhm.
because they feel that it's going to be a total destruction on how things are, the human intelligence, how decisions are made, and also how the work is done.
Yeah, you're
So,
right. Mhm,
however, we believe that AI will only replace those who are not AI proficient. So, with these kind of trainings, we encourage members of the society, uh, everyone to become an agent of change. So,
yeah.
what you've learned today, extend this knowledge to your friend. Make sure they get well acquainted with the AI tools. Let them have the in whatever discipline or in whatever sphere of life they are, they should be able to understand how do I use AI to enhance whatever I'm doing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you're right. Just 2 days ago, I posted something on my social media about a company that's just got funding to, build a model that will learn like humans. Honestly, it's scary. Like, it's scary the way the technology has grown. But like you said, it's only those who are not thinking about, how to position themselves and use these tools well that maybe really, really hit. Everybody's going to be hit hard, whether you learn how to use it, whether you learn how to not use it, everybody's going to be hit hard. But I think it to be softer if you're learning how to, leverage these tools, to tomorrow. I'm really, really curious to see how the next 5 years will be. But let's be optimistic and let's just keep doing our bits to by upskilling ourselves and positioning ourselves.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
my last question to you, Ezinne,
Yeah.
I want you to be bold. For example, if the Ministry of Health in Uganda gave you, let's say, a couple of $1 million, huh?
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
Ministry of Health in Uganda, let's say $1 million,
Mhm.
right? Probably tomorrow,
Mm.
and they say, probably they tell you that deploy an AI model across Uganda's
Mhm.
health system. Where do you
Mhm.
put that money first and why?
Mm. Mm.
Yeah,
Wow.
if we have given you 1 million or $1 to $10 million, that's quite a very good budget.
Mm. Wow. It's
Yeah,
funny that it's
they
funny that
want
you
you to
asked.
deploy AI in Uganda. So
Hmm.
how do you spend that money?
I'm gonna have to think deeply about this question. I'm hoping that the Ministry of Health is in this meeting because I'm about to pitch to them. But anyway, definitely that's a very if the Ministry of Health in Uganda. It's funny that you asked me this question, Mr. Daniel. Are you working with the ministry? Because because obviously this is something that it's not coincidence because I didn't even know that you guys were Ugandans because just yesterday I was talking to my team about you know the Uganda healthcare system, and I'm here today talking about, AI in Uganda. If the Ministry of Health in Uganda were to prioritize AI and they have $1 million, to invest in AI, my recommendation to them, first of all, would be to do a landscape assessment, right? And I say this because I feel like, yeah, it's very, very important to understand the gaps, right, that we have. Because I don't believe in just deploying funding and just coming up with innovations. You really have to understand what the gaps are, first of all. But anything that would help to make the powerhouse of the Ministry of Health a super hub for understanding the different data points across the entire country. I don't know how many states you guys have in Uganda, but having a central having a central power, right, in the ministry that builds, that deploys and links all EHRs, like I said, currently in the USD, it's only one EHR that's being used. It's called Epic. So if we can have a centralized system, deploy an AI model that's centralized, that gives the government the powerhouse hub to be able to get this data, to understand healthcare data in Uganda, I think that would be what I would ask them to invest in, that 1 million, because I know it's going to have its ripple effects across the different area. And that model itself is going to have different features. Definitely, we're through the landscape, we're going to see different features and stuff to really help, help patients, and in the last mile be able to deploy and have better care for their patients. So definitely, I'll be happy to consult with the Ministry of Health and support them in this bold vision. Yes.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you, Ezzy, for uh the kind of answers you're giving at us. Of course, we have a couple of questions here in the comment section. Please keep your question coming through. We want to answer all of your worries, or whatever you want to know about AI, how it is affecting you, how it is, shaping the whole global system, how we work, how we live, and how we do things progressively. Forget about what you studied at school. This is it's a journey which you need to take on, that has to make you relevant, but also even to create an employment opportunities for you, or you create a living. So we've put together some AI crash courses to make sure that all Africans, most especially Ugandans, benefit from these AI solutions. Very soon we'll have our masterclass for AI in health. It will be announced in one of the hotels in Kampala, so that you come through, be trained. We want all the practitioners. But in the meantime, we have courses that are going on. GSDC is certifying them. So we're going to drop in, our admin is going to drop in the link here, such that whoever does the activation this evening, they'll be getting some discounts. So please, Mariam, I believe you can be able to share the link, the comment section here. We want everyone to be attended. We'll also create a survey form for you, just to make sure that we assess wherever you are in terms of the AI industry. Please don't feel be left. We are still at the beginning level. The industry is taking shape. You are privileged to be in this. Don't say that things have left you. No, you're on time. Never too late. So, okay, Mrs. Aso, you there? There's a question here from Apavo Plenzi. Which AI is a large multimodal LLM? Okay, I'm getting your question. Which AI is a large multimodal LLM? Is ChatGPT one of them? I think
Yes. Obviously, ChatGPT is a large language model. It takes a lot of
yeah,
data and synthesizes and pulls data from different parts of the world at the speed of light to really give you a response. So definitely, yes, it is.
awesome. It's been answered. It's one of the models, large language models, as she has told you, from a company called OpenAI. So you need to take part. There's also another one called Perplexity. There are many, very many. There's one from China called Manas. There's another one called Cloud AI. The official company is called Anthropic, and so many others. So we are giving you those that are even OpenClaw. These are now the trending one with cut-edge information, which you need to, when you're using open free versions, there is some information which you don't get. For example, on Cloud AI, if you're on a paid version, you're able to get the cloud code cloud code. You're able to access the cloud co-workspace. Most of these platforms, they're able to 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 work in a safe environment sometimes. Yes. There's another question from Fred Aimbisiwe. Provide tips on how to guard against the risks of overtrusting and hallucination in AI.
Well, yeah, so I mean, those things are things that you have to be very mindful of. And it all starts and stops, it all starts from the data you're getting, right? The data you're using to, fit the data and who is building the model for you, because you actually have to have the right expertise to be able to build those models together. So, yeah, data. We can't overflog it. We need to have the right data and making sure that the data, because it's one thing to have the right data, it's also one thing to be able to, know how to structure the data, right? So for example, there's a there's something called overfitting of the model and underfitting of the model that can actually cause a model to underperform, right? So you have to be very mindful from first of all the data and building the model itself. So that would be the answers I'll have for now to really say this will help you to safeguard the risk. And that's why a human has to be in the loop when it comes to healthcare. Yeah.
Awesome. Which other question do we have here? Okay, we'll be able to share with you the presentations via our official channel. Please keep your emails safe. Every time when we send you an email, you're able to get every information that we're sharing. Or you have an alum from this is George.
Yeah, so Georgina, yes. Nice to
Georgina
meet you, Georgina.
Chirunda. Yeah, you see, the world is very small.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other question?
I see a
If you're
question here by Enoch. He says, what are the key considerations when integrating AI? I think I already talked about it. You have to assess your current organizational workflow. That's the first thing to do, and see if there's a gap or if there's a need. So that way you'll be able to really see what models you should deploy, if you need to deploy, how do you deploy. So I think those are the first things you need to really sit down and understand. So he says, which areas offer the most accessible high impact starting points? Just mapping out the entire process is the first thing you should do to really understand your system. Yeah.
awesome. Do we have any other question before we call it an evening? Or we call it morning? For those of you in the US. Okay, there's a question here from Chris. Chris, are you able to unmute? Louis, you can unmute Chris.
All right, let me do that.
Yeah, we need some people to ask questions. In the meantime, as you're doing that, these are the current systems which we believe that you agents of change were here. And you're obligated, or you feel like this is your passion. Please make sure that you focus on these areas. These are low-hanging fruits. For example, AI diagnostics.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes. Okay, carry on, please, Chris.
Yes, thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you so much, Aso. I'm so glad that I'm part of this. I am someone who has a very different background. I have a background in governance, risk, and compliance, but so much intrigued with the advent of AI. So my question is, what is the logical career change progression for someone like me? Thank you.
Wow, definitely your background is very important right now. I think, the governance of AI is something that a lot of people actually still, there's a lot of skepticism, there's a lot of nobody really understanding where to go, how to go about it, because it's a new thing that, just boomed and it's like growing fast, like wildfire. So we really need people who have those legal mind and really risk management mindset to really, support us in really managing these tools, managing this technology. So I'll recommend that if possible, you can look up some. I don't know. I don't know what your background is. Maybe something we could chat about later. But if you have a background in healthcare or maybe I don't know what area of governance you're coming from, but it will be really helpful to really understand that, because it will help you know what courses you should take, what project you should begin to launch in terms of like helping to really support government to really think about AI ethics. There's ethics of AI, there is governance of AI, there are different aspects. So what I recommend for you is obviously like what you're currently doing, upskill yourself and begin to position yourself as a thought leader in that space, so that you can garner the same support and probably helping government projects who are still trying to define and understand this space in general. But yeah, I'm happy to connect with you and just we can chat about this. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll certainly do that. I'll chat with you.
Okay. Do we have any other question? Of course, we have also a course in generative AI in health. So please, if you're there and you're like, no, this is my passion, I need to take it on, you're welcome in this kind of an environment whereby you're going to be educated on what to be done, how to do it, and how you can apply your skill set in this field. As others are crying for jobs, you're going to be a master at this. You create jobs for them. So that's what we are looking at. These are the current areas which we are looking at. As I've told you, they're very critical. AI diagnostic, malaria, TB, and cancer detection, clinical decision supports, things like AI copilot for doctors, rural reach via mobile AI. The community health workers are able to also benefit from this kind of an arrangement. Maternal healthy AI, which is saving mothers, because we have a very big number of mothers who die on a daily because of the issues. Then also the other one is the health data intelligence, in a way that the outbreak prediction and supply chain is attained very well. We want to combat what government spends on in terms of when there is something that has come through and no one is there to predict it as soon as possible. So AI can be able to do this kind of an arrangement. Yeah. There's so much. We'll share with you the presentations. If there's no any other question, we want to call it a very good evening. I don't know whether our CEO is here, the Julius Storage, just to mention the kind of programs that are going on in terms of the courses, because we want to get people started as soon as today after this call, because education is a lifetime enterprise. You've got to be on top of it every single day. So yeah, the opportunity is big because it is growing every single day. Where you can start from is the education system, whereby you educate yourself. You also advocate within your organizations or your institutes about how you can use AI. And then we pilot. From piloting, we join the AI health community. Yeah, Uganda doesn't need to wait for more doctors. Uganda needs to make every existing doctor 10 times more powerful with the AI. And we are here to sharpen the Ugandans. We are here to sharpen Africans at large, such that they compete with the global trends. With those few remarks that we've just shared with you, let me see whether there is someone here on a call. I know we've been joined with a lot of guests. We have some guests from Dubai. They're advocating for health. We also have some dignitaries from different organizations across the Uganda's health sector. And of course, the leaders that we are serving with. I've seen Dr. James Onyoin. Do we have some other board members here, the directors?
Mr. Richard Mauler.
Okay, Mr. Richard Mauler. Yes, he's one of the founding members and the director. Do we have any other person here? Okay, you'll be able to know the team.
I think Julius Storach should come on. You had invited him to talk about the programs.
Yeah, in a minute, as we are winding up the program. Thank you, Jim. CEO, you're welcome. Also, thank you so much for the presentation. You're amazing. Jetty, are you there? Okay, I think he's getting a challenge with the logins. Hello, Jetty, you're there? Okay, in the meantime, Mariam is, I believe she's going to share how to get started in your emails. We also have a WhatsApp group, those who want to be in an exclusive platform where we share the AI tools that we use on a daily.